Yeah, thank you, everyone. It's always an honor and a privilege when anyone is willing to listen to me talk for more than 2 minutes. So I'm Zander. I am a designer at a company called Monsol. We are a digital bank. Some of you may have heard of us. Some of you may even be users. If you haven't heard of us, that's OK, because I will tell you what we do right now. So we're a digital bank. And I think banking is an industry right now that is quite prone to being called broken. It's something that I'm guilty of, in that I will say that banking is broken. However, I don't think banking is necessarily broken in the same way that a laptop that you have from 7 years ago probably isn't broken. It works, but it's slow. It doesn't have all the features that you need. It's not necessarily that smart. And so that's similar to what we're doing with Monsol. We have been around for about 2 years now. We have around 200,000 customers, or just over. So far, we've been offering a prepaid card and an app that looks like this. So those of you who have a Monsol account will recognize this. Using a Monsol card allows you to, or gives you instant notifications. You can go around the world and use your card for free without incurring any charges. You can send friends instantly. Hopefully, those of you who use it think it's great. There's lots of very nice features, and really, like the ultimate goal is to revolutionize banking in no uncertain terms, and to bring the quality of service up to the level that I think we, as consumers and customers, have come to expect, especially when we look at other industries. So, like taking like Uber, for example, for taxis, or Airbnb for house rental, or Amazon. As customers, we've our expectations have risen up over the last 5, 10, 15 years. And banks have, been offering the same thing for a very long time. And if you have a banking app on your phone from one of the traditional banks, so like Barclays or Halifax, NatWest, they're improving. But in general, I don't think the level of offering is as high as they could be. And hopefully that is where Monsol comes in, and we can offer a more human and better overall experience for customers. So a few months ago, I wrote an article that we put onto the Monsol blog called "Designing a Product with Mental Health Issues in Mind," and you can find it on monsol.com/blog, or just by googling Monsol and mental health. The post kind of included a few different things, or had a few different goals. First was to kind of share my feelings and attitude towards the topic as far as tech companies go, and how I felt about it as a designer and the challenges that came with it. Second was to outline Monsol's goals and what we wanted to do, our ambitions as a company, to be the best service and offering, and to set a precedent for how tech products should be serving those who are most vulnerable. And lastly, it actually included some examples of cool features that we could hopefully build inside of the Monsol app. We have a really great community of users. And this can be found at community.monsol.com. And every single day, they chat on our forum, and they chat on Twitter and everywhere, and they discuss features and ideas and report bugs and talk to us and among themselves about improving Monsol. And that's incredible. I actually haven't ever really seen anything like it in past companies that I've worked for, or products that I use. And we got some amazing feedback from them, and fortunately, the post was shared around quite a bit, and it got a really good discussion going, inside the office and outside the office. I've been lucky to be able to talk about it a few times now. The question of why mental health, I think it's similar to a question of why accessibility, in the sense that as a designer, it's a very interesting challenge. It's a huge spectrum of things you need to consider when designing a product, because mental health is a spectrum. There is no one problem. There's no one thing that you can solve. So it creates a very interesting challenge for a designer to try and build a product around that to solve those issues. It's also invisible, which adds an extra layer of interest and intrigue for me. And also for personal reasons. So I'm going to outline some facts afterwards that will hopefully convince you of the business reasons for wanting to build a great product with mental health in mind, which are, in the UK, 10.4 million people suffer from anxiety every year. 1 in 4 adults face a mental health challenge every year, which means 25% of us in this room, maybe already this year, maybe right now, or in the coming months, will face a challenge, an issue with our mental health. And that can be obviously an array of different things. As I was saying, mental health is a spectrum, and it can come at any point, as we know, and as some of us in this room will know. And so thinking about that in the context of accessibility, if 25% of people in the UK face a mental health challenge, that means that 25% of your users face a mental health challenge. And therefore, there's a huge subset of your users to consider when designing a product for. So thinking about it in another vein, so if I was to say to you, this is the product that we're building, and 25% of your users have trouble using a touchscreen, or 25% of your users have a visual impairment, or 25% of your users have trouble comprehending English, it would be something that you take very seriously as a designer, or as an engineer, or as a researcher, anyone working on the product. It's something that you would take very seriously because it's such a huge subset of your users. And so, as we know, like, mental health is something that is still so heavily layered with taboo, and it's something that I think for a lot of companies, a lot of products, and for people to talk about is hard. But that doesn't invalidate it. It still means it's still something that needs to be challenged by people who are working on consumer-facing products. So in the blog post, I spoke about this idea of positive friction, which is that considered and designed friction inserted into a product can actually be beneficial. The way that we traditionally look at friction versus fluidity from a business perspective and a product perspective is that fluidity is exactly what you want. The sooner and the easier that a user can get to your site or to your app and go through the process or the stages to giving you money as a business is the best possible thing, because it makes sense. Taking Amazon as an example, they've made it incredibly easy for, within 3 minutes of having an idea of something that you need in your living room, to having it guaranteed to be delivered to you the next day, which generally is a really good thing. And for the user to be able to go through minimal steps to get what they want is ideal, as we all know, especially working in UX. But there is also a responsibility that comes with making it so simple for someone to give you money. So as I was saying, friction can actually have a benefit when used appropriately. So the example that I regularly come back to, and I mention in the article, is the 1998 redesign of Tylenol or paracetamol packaging in the UK. So prior to 1998, all paracetamol products were in bottles. And obviously, just like now, you could go to a pharmacy, to a supermarket, or even a corner shop, and very easily buy paracetamol products. Because, for obvious reasons, if you have a headache, you want to get rid of that headache, and it should be easy to do that. However, paracetamol can also cause overdoses, and was used regularly as a method for suicide. And by redesigning the packaging from a bottle to blister packets, whereby previously you were able to easily pour out 10, 20, 30 pills at once and be able to overdose on them so simply, by moving to a blister packet where one by one you would have to pop out a pill, it gave enough friction whereby the person would be considering what they were doing. And it would have enough friction in there to make them think about their action. And in 1998, when that redesign came into play, it decreased suicides with paracetamol-based products by 43%. And it also drastically reduced the amount of accidental deaths by children who confused these bottles for sweets or similar. And so this is like the prime example, I think, of just a simple change that didn't actually hinder the experience for someone who had a headache at all. It didn't make it any harder for them to get rid of their headache by popping out two pills from a blister packet, but it meant that there was a 43% decrease in suicides, which is an amazing change. So afterwards in the blog post, I gave some examples of things that we could do for Monsol. I'll walk you through 3 of them. So the first one is targeted at users who are prone to overspending, especially late at night. Yeah. But this is actually very common, especially for people who suffer from bipolar disorder, who in a manic phase, especially alone, especially late at night, are likely to spend a large amount of money, either as a way to make themselves feel better, or because they are so happy and proud of themselves to be in this upstate that they don't have control of their actions. And so this concept, bear in mind that this and the few screens you're about to see, they're not in the app yet. Hopefully they will be one day. But the idea is that it's just a simple toggle in settings that would allow you to set a time and an amount. So in the example, after 10 p.m., you've spent over £300, and therefore we would ask you the next day, when hopefully you're in a better mental state, did you mean to do this? Do you want to review these purchases? Especially because, as I was saying, this is often undertaken by someone who's probably alone late at night in their room or their laptop in the dark and making purchases to make themselves feel better. And obviously this is the next day when reality hits and they've gone and lost £300 in their bank account. I mean, we had a story about someone who lost their entire life savings in a manic phase in one night. I think spent £14,000 on what is like, she admitted, and is realistically like useless crap just because she wasn't in her right mind. And so just adding in this option to allow you to either cancel or cancel a purchase, or even sometimes just give you the instructions to send it back could be super powerful. And this one is in a similar vein, which would allow a carer to receive a notification if you had spent over a certain amount, and therefore someone else who has power of attorney over your account would be able to verify if this was something that should have happened or not. Working and trying to design products that are going to be used by carers is a very tough thing to do because it's something that can very easily be abused. So think about, obviously, like 99% of use cases, it will be a caring, loving person who is in charge of your account if you have set a carer. But there's obviously the opportunity for it to be an abusive partner, or maybe an ex who has your password, something like that. So you have to be very careful around what you can do. So this one is obviously it's quite speculative, and I'm asking you to imagine a lot off just one notification screen. But it's something, with all the work that we do around carers and power of attorney, will be quite risky but important work to do. The last one is targeted at users who may feel anxious about talking on the phone. Like, this is very common for those who suffer from anxiety, and that the idea of speaking on the phone to someone, especially their bank, is daunting. So even though we, as a company, and myself included, think that we have a really nice, human, and lovely voice, and our customer support team are amazing. They're incredible people who work very hard to ensure a great experience to all the users. For the majority of people, we're still just the bank. We're the bank, and we're the people who are tied to debt and credit reports and loans and these scary things that you only half understand and you don't really want to talk about on the phone. This feature would allow someone to set what their communication preferences are. So if they would rather just be talking to you with email, or even the instant chat, which is our default form of contact. And then secondly, to set a preferred time slot. So if they wanted to only speak to us when they knew that they had a family member with them, just so they could have that extra layer of security. Just adding in that simple option, and then it would flag on our back end, so that if ever we were to contact someone, or if they contacted us, it would show, and there's no real effort, and it would be a really powerful thing to do that would, I think, just ensure a much nicer and a feeling of safety, which many other banks, I don't think, would offer. It comes down to building responsibly, and the reality is that technology won't solve everything. In general, when we approach things with new features at Monsol, we have to move quite quick because we're a startup. It requires you to build things, and a lot of things fast, because you need to get them out there. And so in general, we try and aim for making something that will suit 80 to 90% of our users. It's not going to cover every use case, but if we can make it for that high majority, then that's good. But when it comes to making a great product that serves those who are vulnerable and may have a mental health condition, it's important to not just look at the technology side of the company, and it's something that needs to permeate throughout the whole organization. And so therefore, if our app was to fail someone, which is very likely, especially as we expand to a much larger user base, things are going to go wrong, and they'll go wrong often. And if they do go wrong, someone can't be allowed to slip through the cracks. That's the worst possible scenario in my eyes. is if something went wrong for someone and the only answer they got was, well, that's your fault. To me, that's the same level in terms of accessibility as someone coming to your site, not being able to read the text because the contrast was too low, and they say that to you, and you say, well, get better eyes. Like I see it like that. It's black and white for me. It's not okay if someone is allowed to slip through the cracks, and especially when it's something as close to their life as their finances. It's really important that, as I was saying, this permeates through the company, and we truly care about getting everyone the right solutions. If the technology fails, then they will have someone to speak to. And lastly, I don't, and Monsol don't really know what we're talking about in this, and it's still very early on. And because mental health is something that has been such a taboo subject for a long time, it's only recently that there's been a large amount of research and data for us to work off. There's a really great institute called the Money and Mental Health, who are doing research constantly into this and pushing out a lot of great work around the topic of obviously your finances and how it affects your mental health. And we've taken some research from them, and obviously, as we're a bank, we're going to be constantly learning about our users' data, but realizing that we're very early on, and this is going to be quite a long journey for us to actually get to a point where we feel really, really confident with the product that we're offering, but kind of admitting some form of defeat early on, but wanting to improve that from the get-go. That's our goal. So, thank you. Do you have time for questions?
We have time for a couple of questions. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more, but yeah.
How do you user test for mental health?
That's a very, very good question. So what we have planned are a series of workshops, starting probably with a wider range of people suffering from different conditions, and then hopefully we'll get down into more acute challenges in terms of maybe we'll get a workshop or a small group together and have a conversation, and they all are people who suffer from bipolar disorder. We have user testing and I guess user research every week at Monsol, but this would be specifically focused around mental health and maybe focusing on one condition at once. It will be something that we actually have to learn from, to be honest. We don't really have the perfect answer yet, but hopefully we will find a great way of doing it.
I think when you've got more sort of data from customers, that we had to build in sort of algorithms to pick up on some of the things like spending habits, so that people with manic depression, for example, if they are sort of going and buying things suddenly, that it sort of picks up on that, and sort of as you do if you suddenly get an email from the bank or a phone call saying they've shut you down because they've noticed something irregular.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that's what we would be trying to do, exactly that, but in a much nicer way. So I don't think we would ever want to shut down someone's account or pause activity. It's a common thing if you go abroad, for example, for your bank to block your card because they just assume it's fraud straight away. We will always try and assume the best rather than the worst from our customers. But yes, we are proactively going to be monitoring, and we're even starting to look into it now, but monitoring users' accounts, not in a snoopy way, but in a hopefully a way that will provide a safety net for them. So we will be able to detect if there is something that we consider to be abnormal.
Okay, I have to be the bad guy because obviously we do have restrictions over time. So can we thank Zander, please?